Yo, what's up, homies? All right, so we're going to be doing dungeon video guides. Basically, I did a lot of dungeons on the beta, a ton of M+, and I wanted to bring you guys some just like some advice, some tips, some tricks, so you guys as well can jump into your dungeons and be successful fairly on in the season. Obviously, strategies aren't like fully fleshed out, but these were pretty meta strategies and kind of things that you should be looking to do or looking to know with the dungeons that come out as they come out in M+. This is going to help you out early season and just kind of learning what's going on, and I hope you guys enjoy. Today, we're going to start off with the first dungeon that I have available for us, and that will be Temple of the Jade Serpent. So Temple of the Jade Serpent is actually a pretty short dungeon. It says 31 minutes. It's very generous 31 minutes. It's incredibly lenient on the timer. And right off the bat, you have a choice of whether or not you go right or go left. Typically, the meta on the beta was you were going left early. And I mean, I think that right off the bat, there's like a couple of things that you need to know about these first couple packs. First off, these corrupted droplets, they do a splash cast, and that does a pretty significant amount of AoE. You need to be careful about that. In addition to that, you need to make sure that these water speakers have a 2-kick interrupt on them. Hydro Lance can kill people, especially at higher levels. If you don't have enough HP to be able to deal with it, Hydro Lance is very dangerous. And then the Corrupted Living Water casts like a tainted ripple cast, and that puts a dot on your whole entire party. And so these first couple of packs are pretty dangerous, and you should be looking to maybe like lust to this first pull. Having all of your offensive CDs for the first pull is also very, very lucrative as well, as it allows you to, just stay a little bit safer. In addition to that, with those water Ellies, the Tainted Ripple cast can be line of sighted. And so I don't think for the first Ellie, you should be looking to line of sight, but for subsequent Corrupted Living Waters, if you just sit there and you like, okay, so say you don't have a lot of defensives here. Like, we realistically don't have a ton. And so that's why we're popping like our darkness and stuff like that. You can tank this guy out here. Hold on. I forgot that I couldn't do this when it's in full screen. You can tank this out here on the corner and have people just line of sight the Living Waters Tainted Ripple cast. Obviously, that's not mandatory for a lot of players. And then for players who are, not as familiar with the dungeon, they're not going to be looking to line of sight it, but it is something you can do. I think that the most important thing, though, to make sure that you're getting dealt with is getting these kicks on this caster here, making sure that you get the Water Lance and you get the Tidal Burst cast, because the Tidal Burst cast is like a full group-wide one-shot. Obviously, the rest of this is going to be damaged, so making sure that you pop your defensives fairly early on, especially whenever you do also have these droplets, it's pretty important. I've seen a lot of people wipe to this pack. It's not the end of the world if you do wipe to it, though, but, there are pretty easy ways of solving issues, making sure that you have heavy defensives here, making sure that you're getting the Water Speaker kick, those kind of things. Okay. Next up, we have the first boss, which is Wise Mari. I think that Wise Mari is a fairly simple encounter. Well, the next pack is like a Corrupted Living Water and double Water Speaker, so you need to make sure that you're actually just getting these mobs kicked. But realistically, there's not really much more to say about that. Wise Mari. So how Wise Mari works is you get a circle on you. You want to drop these circles around the outside, like, area here. This allows like your melee to continue to hit the bot, like not down on the ledge, but like on the ledge. You want to drop it like as far as possible, like on the ledge here. This allows your melee to have as much uptime as possible whenever they're dropping it. In addition to that, it allows these puddles to not be in the way. Then during the intermission, Wise Mari will fire this like water jet and spin it in a circle. It's not consistent in which direction it spins, but it will fire this water jet and spin it in a circle, and you want to be making sure that you dodge the circle like on these like inside platforms. And so that's why it's important to put the circles on these outside platforms. Okay, so that's the gist of what we're going to be looking at here. And so we can just hit play and kind of look at how this is going to work out. So in addition to that, you do see these. So right off the bat, I have the circle. You also saw like some water that was coming out of these puddles here. So anything that's like not this like elevated platform periodically will start pulsing. And whenever it starts pulsing after a certain period of time, it'll like detonate and do like an AoE to anybody that's standing in it. And at a high enough level to one-shot you, at like a pretty low level, it won't really one-shot you or anything. But it's still something that you need to know about, mostly for whenever you're running around from the water jet. So here's the wash away cast. Okay, basically, It doesn't telegraph super well. So basically, you're looking for this washaway cast. It targets one player, and so you know that the washaway is immediately going to start here. And then it has a chance of going this direction or this direction. And you just have to dodge out of the way. It does a bit over one full rotation. And so if you do run pretty fast and get away from it, you're able to. So say if I was able to run to like this third platform here, I wouldn't have to dodge too much else. In addition to that, we have the ground doing the pulsing animation, which means every so often the ground is going to explode as well. And so you need to make sure that you are continuously moving from the washaway while also not getting hit by the water pulse. If you get hit by either ability, you're going to die, but realistically, there's not much other damage on this fight. That's the quick way of dealing with Wise Mari. We're going to ignore the fact that we died on this trash pack. Next, after Wise Mari, typically the meta is you're going right side and you're dealing with these pandas. These pandas have like a throw torch style ability, and so you can see that indicated by like the debuff right here that we have on Jack. Both of the pandas do like a throw torch debuff. It can be dispelled. However, it is important to note that it does a significant amount of damage and they throw multiple. And so like if you don't get them dispelled fast enough, they can start stacking up and that's going to cause somebody to die. Mass dispels are very, very good here. In addition to that, if you do have a torch on you for an extended period of time, keeping a DR on your person is nice. In addition to that, you see this Haunting Sha. It has, okay, so basically the Haunting Sha has two mechanics. It has a Fervent Strike, which is the Haunting Gaze, which basically means that your tank needs to be in melee of him at all times. And he also has I think it's called like Haunting Scream, and it's a fear cast. Basically, you just kick it. It's not like overly complicated or anything. You just make sure that he does get interrupted to not fear your whole entire party. Beyond that, the trash here is fairly straightforward. There's a couple more of these Shawlings with the Haunting Gazes, and the Haunting Scream, and you just make sure that you interrupt those. There's like a Songbird, which you would think that this puts you to sleep, but in reality, it just like stacks up this Songbird debuff on your player, and that kind of thing makes you take more damage as you stand in the Songbird Queen circle. Overly not a difficult mob, but you kind of want to do it solo because of how ridiculous the other mobs on both of the other sides of this mob are. So now here we have the Golden Beetle, the Nodding Tiger, and the monkey that enrages, the Hosen. Basically, you want to be focusing down the Beetle here. It does a lot of damage to your group. Interrupting the Hosen on his enrage is also kind of important. And then the Nodding Tiger will leap out periodically, doing a bleed onto players. You can use effects like Ursul's Vortex or Ring of Peace or whatever to try to keep it into melee. But the Nodding Tiger is not that big of a deal. Basically, you're going to focus down Beetle, then Tiger, then Hosen, and make sure that you continuously get interrupts on the monkey. Next, we have Agony and Strife, Peril and Strife are the names of these bosses. Okay, let me get these bosses activated, and then I will pause and explain exactly how they work. So we have Strife and Peril here, and if you ever played Temple of Sathralis, the bosses have a mechanic that's reminiscent of the first bosses in Temple and Sathralis, Adderus and Aspix. How it works is whenever the bosses are active, they stack up like a debuff on them, this frowny face debuff you see right here, right? And so as this frowny face debuff stacks, you get more damage goes out on the whole entire party. And it stacks up by doing damage to them, whether it be via AoE effects or whether it be via single target effects. And most abilities will stack this up, including things like Ice Lance, including things like Twin Moon's Moonfire, and a lot of AoE, including things like Thrash, will just stack up this AoE. And so you may see this and you may say, oh, okay, I want to stand in the middle and make sure that I'm cleaving both of these targets. That is actually the opposite of what you want to do, because also, once these mobs reach 10 stacks, not only are they doing a significant amount of damage to your whole entire party, but in addition to that, once they hit 10 stacks, they go immune. And so what the play is generally is you attack one of them, you bring this up to let's say 7 stacks, right? 7 or 8 stacks. And then you completely hard target swap to the other one, let this one reset. And then once this one gets to 7 or 8 stacks, then you swap back. Okay. And that's more or less how it works. The boss does a ridiculous amount of pulsing AoE. And so you need to definitely be careful. On the pull, you can probably apply like AoE bleed effects or like do some AoE damage to the if you're hitting Strife, you can do some AoE effects to Peril because you know that they're going to fall off. It falls off relatively quickly. The debuffs do. So if you spend I want to say it's like 5 or 6 seconds without hitting them, then it'll fall off. So look at this. We have Strife at 7 stacks. The call is made to get off of it, so we push it to 8. Now we're immediately target swapped off of it. We're no longer hitting it with any effects, and then it completely resets its stacks to 0 here. And so all the while we target swap and we're hitting Peril here, and he has his stacks up to 3, and so we've let these stacks reset. This boss, pain in the ass for pucks. This boss is going to be very difficult, and I think that just having a really good understanding of how to get the stacks reset and like what you should be looking to do will help you long term with this kind of fight. That's the TLDR. There's not really much else to it. There's not too many other complicated mechanics or anything else that's really going on. There is a debuff that goes out onto players, and you see it stacking up on me right here. I am getting absolutely hosed by this guy, and so I'm starting to heal myself even. That debuff is very dangerous. You know, you don't really want to take that thing unmitigated. But yeah, that's more or less how this fight works. Okay, now let's talk about the next part of trash. There's this big infester. He summons these little ads. These ads explode on death. That's all you really need to know about them. He does not a frontal, but he does a targeted like cone mechanic that, you know, I've died to sometimes. It happens. Happens to the best of us, okay? I'm not really sure what happened there, but I may have died to it there even. Next, we have the... We did some shenanigans in this dungeon. Let me talk about this in order of like what people are most likely to do in here. Let me talk about the third boss room first, and then I'll come back to the fourth boss room. We'll work at this in like chronological order as like most people would play this. Okay, so third boss room trash. You're not gonna come in from this side, but the most important mob here is this Depraved Mistweaver. This Depraved Mistweaver does like a suck cast. In addition to that, yeah, it does a suck cast, and it needs like insta kicking, otherwise you're going to die. On top of that, you have Haunting Shas in these pack, which we saw earlier. They have the Haunting Scream cast, and so you need to make sure that those get interrupted as well. Otherwise, you are going to basically die. Okay, so the Mistweaver's cast is you saw us interrupted a second ago, and now it's casting that Defiling Mist again. We interrupt it another time. We're really just making sure that we get all of these casts interrupted. And again, the Haunting Sha, his ability is still a fervent, and so kiting out of the way of him is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. Those are most of the mobs in this area, is the Haunting Shas and the Mist Callers, and just there's variations of each pack. We also have one of the Infestors, which is that big mini boss mob that we saw earlier that summons the Malformed Sha, which are the mobs that explode. We have some Malformed Sha in this area as well, and so them dying, you know, you want to pop a defensive, you want to pre-pop a defensive. We're like pre-rallying here, and I'm like healing myself a little bit. You want to make sure that you're pre-popping a defensive whenever they die, because they do a considerable amount of damage to your group. But realistically, that's all of the trash that's in this area. And so now let's talk about the third boss. And so we're doing a strategy that they fixed, but let's talk about it in the context of like, what if they didn't fix it? So I can just explain, even though we're doing a strategy that we fixed, at least for the purposes of this VOD, we can still explain roughly how this fight works. So every so often, Liu Flameheart is going to cast Serpent Strike, which is a decent amount of damage to your tank. Then it's going to cast Serpent Kick, which does a circle around the boss. And then after the circle casts, there's going to be some waves. There's going to be some waves that spawn out from like the boss here, yeah? And you have to dodge out of the way of these waves. And so it's really difficult to tell where the waves are going to spawn if you're playing as a melee. And so like that's why we were standing on this lip in line of sighting the circle, is because we didn't want to have to dodge the waves, because they're actually very difficult. But whenever you move out, the waves like can spawn like on you, or like, yeah, on you in most situations. And so you need to make sure, like if you're playing melee, you move out a little bit further from them. Let me rewind this 10 seconds just so I can show you where the waves are relative to this circle. Okay, so look at this. And the waves are like, say the circle was like here, right? The waves are in this position, this position, this position, and this position, and then they fire out in all directions. And And so you just need to be really careful about getting hit by them because they can kill you, like 100-0. And so then boss phases goes into the green dragon phase, yeah. And then those waves shoot out these puddles. And it's the exact same mechanics, right? Except there is now a tank dot, a magic tank dot that absolutely blasts your tank. And so you need to be like super careful about tank survivability here because it is a intense amount of magic damage. On top of that, these the waves spawn these green puddles whenever they exit the boss. And so you need to make sure that you either move the boss or, just kind of deal with these green puddles. Again, for melee range, it's basically the same fight, except you no longer have a specific point that you can stand on. This gets a bit tricky whenever you have thundering involved, especially with trying to clear with ranged players as a melee, but it's overly not too bad. Now, once per swash 30%, you get a pretty easy fight. First off, the boss has a frontal, which I'm sitting in front of the boss here. I hope I move, but the boss does have a frontal. Okay, yeah. I move out of the way of it, but once the boss has 30%, you're kind of home free. You typically will be looking to lust, like if you're looking to lust that boss, you're looking to lust P2 because phase 2 is the hardest part with the magic tank dot. A lot of tanks aren't really able to take that tank dot very well. And so just lusting that phase 2 and holding your offensive cooldowns for it should make it a lot easier because tanks are very sturdy in phase 1, but in phase 2 of that fight, it's not something that they can reasonably deal with very well. Okay, now let's talk about the last boss, Sha of Doubt. It's kind of annoying but fairly simple. Basically, the boss puts 2 debuffs on players every so often, and they need to get dispelled. And so you want to make sure that you are spread permanently because it's like a pulsing AoE. And so I think that I do a poor job on this fight generally. I think that I've been learning how to do this fight better, but I think that generally I've been doing a poor job on this fight. And if you see yourself get one of these debuffs on you, you either are going to get dispelled instantly, or you should dispel somebody instantly, or you pop personal. I think that those are the two things that you need to know about that debuff. In addition to that, the boss has this Bounds of Reality cast. And so every so often, the boss will go into an intermission where it teleports in the middle of the room and casts Bounds of Reality. And what's about to happen here is we are about to summon copies of ourselves, and they're about to explode out of the back of our characters relative to where we are facing. And so you see us hard stacked here, and we are set, and our call is face the boss, right? This is what you want to do. You want to hard stack on a single point, and you want to face the boss to make sure that these ads spawn in the exact same spot. And you can watch here as we might mess it up a little bit. There may be like one ad that's not stacked. Oh, we actually do a great job. And so all of the ads spawn out of our players, they leap back away from us, and then immediately we turn and start hitting these ads. Once you have 25 seconds from once they spawn to kill these ads, and then you will phase the boss back into the normal phase. And so you need to make sure that like you start taking a ridiculous amount of damage from these ads as well. So you see it's like pre-darking and stuff like that. These mobs do a lot of damage to you whenever they're meleeing you, but make sure that you have like CC available for them. I know you can Ring of Peace them away from you. You can't use things like Typhoon and Ursul's Vortex for God knows what reason, but you can use like Ring of Peace, for example. And just making sure that you like Shockwave and unload a large amount of burst AoE, potentially having cooldowns available for them is very lucrative. And then after that, you kind of spread. And that's ultimately how the boss works. So you spread for the debuffs. You don't play like me. Do not play like what I'm doing right here. I'm stacked on top of our tank. This is dumb. Do not play like this. Make sure that you're staying spread the whole entire time, and then you should be good to go. Overall, that's basically everything you need to know about Temple of the Jade Serpent. These videos are going to be like not the 10-minute, 5-minute TLDR. These are going to be a little bit more informed in regards to what kind of dungeon guides these are. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed the rest of the series, and I will see you guys in the next one.